Rhema Brekky on your Monday morning, 10.5 minutes after 8. Mick Wright with you through until 9. Make sure you stick around. Plenty of good Christian music like that still to come. And, of course, we are joined on the line this morning. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, pastor and psychologist Sabrina Peters is with us. Good morning to you, Sabrina.
Good morning. Great to be here. How are you, Vic?
I'm going really, really well, thanks. Now, look, I understand you had a little bit of a lurgy over the weekend. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I did. I'm feeling much better, but I just apologise if my voice breaks or if I cough or anything like that. But yeah, feeling so much better. Thanks for asking.
Look, that's what we want to hear. Well, we're praying for you that, complete healing. And we know that Jesus does that kind of thing, which is great news for all of us. That is for sure. Now, look, I wanted to jump on this morning with you, and because on our Rhema website, of course, your name pops up quite a lot. Many, many great articles on there, and so I wanted to chat this morning about the high price of people pleasing. It is one of those things that it is so pervasive in our thinking, isn't it? And I guess probably to kick us off this morning, Sabrina, at its core, what is people pleasing?
Okay, so I feel like if we want to summarize it from, a Christian perspective and maybe integrating some of that psychological worldview, I would say that people-pleasing is really this kind of ongoing habit of prioritizing other people's approval over your own needs. So it's about kind of living in a way where you put yourself on the altar, you say yes all the time, you never say no, you have very few boundaries. And it really is at the cost of your own values. It's at the cost of often your own walk with God and even your own mental health, I would say.
Oh, boy, look, I can hear amens all over the Central Coast this morning. And probably anywhere else that people are tuned into us via live streaming or the app or wherever else. I'm sure that there are amens and hands going up all over the place. It is. Now, do you think, is it... I guess from an emotional, psychological perspective, like you said, is it an insecurity thing? Is it what is it around that?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I really want to preface that sacrifice isn't bad, and living generously isn't bad. Really, we use this term self-sacrifice or people-pleasing when it goes to the nth degree. So, as believers, we followed the way of Jesus. We see his life. We see that he laid down his life for others. We see that he gave his time and his energy. It's really when our entire life is it's almost like that movie, Yes Man. We can't say no. We always say yes. We always put our needs aside. So really, I want that to be heard first so that people don't tune into this and think, oh, okay, I'm going to decline serving at church. I'm going to say no to, helping a neighbor or helping a friend. It's not that. It's this fine line between self-sacrifice and people-pleasing and really self-abandonment. So one of them is led by wisdom and grace, and the other, like you said, is led by insecurity and fear. So why we do certain things and the motive behind our behavior is a really good indicator what's going on. So, for example, I'm a pastor in a church, I serve at church, we go in early, all of those types of things. If I do that from a place of obligation, fear of God or fear of man, that becomes a litmus test of my why. And so I feel like as Christians, we need to be courageous enough to ask ourselves why we do certain things, align our values and our hearts and our behavior with biblical principles, and also I think working on the inside of, are we pleasing God? Are we pleasing man? Getting that into alignment. And then we can be doing almost the same thing. We can serve in the same way, but it comes from a different place. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
No, that's. I think you're right on the money there. A couple of things that I love that you said was that self-sacrifice. It's led by wisdom, with people-pleasing being led by fear and insecurity. And I think they are probably two major points to hang on to this morning. Now, Jesus. We obviously all of us want to follow his model, and his model really was sacrificial love. and set by boundaries, as you said.
Yes.
So that is a huge thing. Can you talk to us a little bit about what sort of healthy boundaries look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So even reflecting on the life of Jesus, there were points in his life where he actually said no to people. If you look at the story of him in John 7, when his brothers basically come to him, and it's the Festival of Tabernacle, and his brothers say, you need to go and you need to show yourself to the world. And Jesus basically said, no, it's not my time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had the capacity to do it, but he said no. And so recognizing the time is so important. So I think when it comes to people pleasing, we really have to look at the cost, like how we end up feeling. Are we exhausted? Do we do things out of guilt? Our boundaries, we often, as Christians, can think that putting up boundaries is actually a negative. I don't know about you, Mick, but I never really heard of the term boundaries until my adult life. Like, that's a swear word in church. Like, boundaries, what do you mean? Like, you're not saying yes to everything all the time. But a healthy boundary is actually just about knowing your capacity. It's about knowing what is needed from you and what is needed for you at that time. And again, I really want to preface, it's not about living a selfish life. It's about stewarding your limits. It's about knowing, when you can say no. Just in light of the fact that I've been sick the last couple of days, I'll tell you for a fact I'm a recovering people pleaser, Mick.
Yep.
I felt great obligation to, I've got to go to work. Obviously, I work as a clinician. I'm really invested in my clients. And so I think I just pushed myself to the absolute nth degree. And my husband kept saying, you're sick, you can't work. You obviously... you're not well, but also you don't want to make other people sick. And I got to Saturday night, and part of me was like, I can still go to church tomorrow. I must go to church. Like, I'm a pastor. I should be there. I need to serve. I need to help set up. I need to help lead the people. And then I had a chat with my husband. His name's Ben, on Saturday. And he was like, you need to take your own advice. You are fine. Like, you can just stay at home for one Sunday and recover. And it's actually okay, because I, to be honest, felt very guilty. Mm-hmm. And even though I was unwell, I was like, no, I should still be there and I should still be helping. So it's not just something that I talk about. I think it's something that I'll wrestle with day to day, just making sure that, I tune into what's needed from me and what's needed for me.
Yeah. Now, look, Sabrina, why do you think Christians are so prone to people pleasing?
I reckon sometimes we can kind of get a little bit of funky theology, to be honest. We can misunderstand what it means to deny ourselves. Obviously, it talks about that in the Gospels, denying yourself and taking up your cross. I think sometimes we can look at certain scriptures and we can almost read them out of context, or not out of context, but we can just apply them to our context. So I think, to be honest, there's this misunderstanding about what it means to be selfish. Like, saying no is equated to selfishness. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's true. I think saying no at some point in time is wisdom. For example, me saying no, not going to church tomorrow, was probably wisdom, not selfishness. We fear disappointing others. I think there's often this spiritual guilt where, if you're faithful and if you love Jesus, you're always caring about another person, and you kind of put yourself at the end of that line, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Mick. What do you think Christians, what's the motivator for Christians being quite self-sacrificing and people-pleasing?
I think you're absolutely spot on with those. We do have some funky theology at times. Again, fear is a root cause there, definitely. We don't want to disappoint others. And like you say, the spiritual guilt is a huge one in church, my goodness, and particularly in the mental health field. Like you say, you are a clinician. You probably do deal with a lot of Christians who go to therapy for all sorts of different reasons. And guilt is a massive one for people. And, of course, look, I think the over-responsibility for the emotions of other people is a real killer as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I like that you said that too, because often we are self-sacrificing because we don't understand that conflict is part of life, and we tend to avoid it. Like, we can be quite passive and, we don't want to upset someone. We don't want to say no. When in reality, it's just about how we handle that conflict. If we handle that in an assertive way, which simply means saying what we need and it's heard by the other person. Passive is we don't say what we need and then we end up doing something and we might feel resentful for it. Aggressive obviously speaks for itself and we're quite volatile in our delivery, but we do often feel quite responsible for peace, for keeping the peace, for making sure that there's no conflict. And sometimes we just need to be able to work through conflict in a better way.
Yeah, look, conflict is definitely a massive area that I don't think a lot of us do really well at all. I know I never was good at that. Getting a lot better these days in my sort of middle age, but it's taken a while, that is for sure. It's 21 and a half minutes after 8 on your Monday morning. We are talking with our very special guest, Sabrina Peters, pastor and psychologist, looking at the effects of people-pleasing. And, of course, look, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with Sabrina right after this. We'll give you some tips on how to break free and how to stop people-pleasing. This is Rhema, Brekky on your Monday morning. Stay with us. Good to have you on board. Mick Wright with you through until 9. Of course, we are joined by a very special guest this morning, pastor and psychologist Sabrina Peters, and we are looking at the hidden costs of people-pleasing. Now, when Sabrina and I were talking there before on air, they're people-pleasing, one of those things. You can really start it off with a lot of good intentions, but they can be fairly serious spiritual, emotional, and physical consequences. We've already covered a few of those. Exhaustion and resentment. You can kind of lose yourself too when you really get involved in this. Your identity kind of goes out the window. We had a look at the boundaries. There can be a very fine line between weak or non-existent boundaries. Spiritual burnout is a huge one, and we really get, I think, a real distorted understanding of love and obedience. So, Sabrina, this morning, I thought what we do is let's jump in and look at a few of the ways that we can break free and stop ourselves from going down the route of people pleasing.
Sounds good, Mick. Yeah, let's jump into it because, we don't just want to know that we might have a leaning or a bent. We want to know how to change that and become more generous with our lives rather than living out of pressure. So I've just got a few tips here that I've basically written and I've applied in the therapeutic space as well. I think the first step is really becoming aware of your motive. I said it before, why we do something is so important. So I can go to church and I can do that out of a place of fullness, out of a place of sacrifice, out of a place of generosity. Or I can go to church and I can serve or I can love others out of obligation, out of pressure, out of fear, out of guilt. So really you have to almost like take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, why do I do what I do? And I'm not saying just, pull out of everything, but examine your heart and ask God to almost align you, but also fill it up. Like, I have this image in my head that people pleasing is really, it's like a beggar bowl where we're waiting for somebody else to affirm us, to thank us, to love us. We do it from a place of deficit, but living the life that God has for us, it's actually like we've got a full cup and a full bowl and we give that out. So I would just say the first part is becoming aware of why you do certain things. Next thing, we've talked about boundaries before, Mick. We have to be able to say no in some circumstances. We shouldn't say no all the time, right? But we also shouldn't say yes all the time. So Christians, we need to get better with boundaries. We need to get better with recognizing, we can't just pour out all the time. There's the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, and it's true. And so we can't say yes to everything all of the time, but we can say yes to the right things some of the time,
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, one of the things that I really like is the fact that, like you say, we don't have to say yes all the time. And a couple of ways we could probably do that is, just little short sentences, things like, look, I appreciate you asking, can't commit to that right now, or hey, look, I really care about you, but I've got to say no this time. So just little phrases like that can go a long way, can't they?
They really can. They really can. And a lot of the time I feel like people get caught out because they don't know how to answer something, and they just say, oh, sure, I can do that. Sure, I can go pick you up. Sure, I can attend that event. When in reality, we just need to be comfortable with, oh, I actually have a really busy weekend. I don't think I can make it to that party on Saturday night. You know, we just need to kind of pre-prepare those conversations. Look, Mick, the next, I guess, tip for really how to stop people pleasing or becoming more aware of it is get comfortable with discomfort. What does that mean? It means that some people will want so much from you and you can't give it. They might be disappointed in you. They might guilt trip you, you know, whether it's family members, whether it's an environment, if it's a workplace. And you might feel certain things that make you uncomfortable, and all you want to do is just go, oh, yep, sure, I can do that for you. But sometimes we actually need to tolerate discomfort a little bit more. Yep,
absolutely. Now, guilt is another one here. How can we sort of, how do we get around the guilt part?
Yeah, I think we do need to ask ourselves a few things. Am I actually doing something wrong, or am I uncomfortable? I mentioned before that I was sick over the weekend, and I'm part of an incredible church in Brisbane. I'm a pastor here. I felt so bad that I couldn't go to church, and right up until probably Saturday night, 10 p.m., I was like, no, I have to go. And it wasn't until I challenged the guilt and I was like, am I doing something wrong by not going to church? No, I just feel uncomfortable with it. So really we can ask ourselves, you know, would I expect somebody else to feel guilty for doing this? Would I be okay with it? And then just explore kind of what's going on. Do we have a reason to feel guilty? And often we don't. We just want to please another person, or we just want to make sure that we don't disappoint them.
Yep, absolutely. Now, we mentioned before that sometimes our view of love and kindness can get a little bit skewed. So what should we do around that?
Yeah, I think Christians often believe that love is, you know, endless availability. We constantly accommodate. We constantly put ourselves last. I believe that true love, or biblical rooted love, really it combines wisdom, honesty, and balance. So we see Jesus' life, like he went away, he set boundaries, he went into the wilderness. I think it's like over 25 times it's referenced in the New Testament that he actually went away because he needed to refuel. And so I just think that we need to redefine what's biblical in terms of sacrifice, in terms of generosity. We can't give everything out. That's not biblical, but we can give some things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And to wrap us up this morning, a final tip, Sabrina, and it really is to do with our calling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important that we take the time to say, what has God asked me to do? Am I serving out of joy or obligation? Am I pleasing God, or am I pleasing man? Because people pleasing, it's not a biblical virtue, but pleasing God and living God's way and living, again, generously and living outwardly focused, that is biblical. So what I'm getting at is we don't pour everything out all of the time, but really we connect with what has God asked me to do, and how can I be a blessing and a witness to the world around me without being completely spent.
Yeah, so good. Sabrina, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this morning. Look, hopefully down the track we can get you back on the show as well. I know you're a prolific blogger, article writer, things like that, and of course very busy being a pastor and a psychologist too. Now, if people would love to read some of your resources, maybe jump onto social media, how can they do that this morning?
Yeah, I've got a website, I've got a lot of articles. It's just called The Healthy You. Really the premise is that we want to be emotionally healthy and spiritually mature. And then also, Mick just started a podcast called The Healthy Christian, so people can tune into that and hopefully find encouragement and inspiration there.
Yep, I'm sure a lot of people will. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to pop you on hold real quick. I'll get back to you. That is our very special guest this morning there, Sabrina Peters, a pastor and psychologist. Again, jump on, have a look at The Healthy You. That is the website there. You can go, and, of course, the podcast. Stay with us. This is Rhema Brekky on your Monday morning. We got the news coming up next.